Previously on $5 Gaming. And now the conclusion.
Alright, now that I've had a chance to relax and clear my head a little bit, welcome back to $5 Did my hair change color?
In spite of the poor reviews Tony Hawk Ride saw after its release, its launch went okay-ish. It sold 300,000 copies across all three platforms in the first 2 weeks. Or it might have sold 115,000 copies, it depends on whose numbers you believe. However, weak-ish sales and bad reviews didn't kill off Ride's follow-up, Tony Hawk Shred, which was already in development by the time Ride shipped to retail.
Yet another modern-day example of why you shouldn't commit to a sequel before seeing how your product does outside of a focus group or a pie chart. Although actually, pie charts can be really useful to help visualize data. Like this one, for example.
Robomoto went out and hired Dr. Young-Tai Kim, a physicist who has his own video series called The Physics of Skateboarding, to work on the camera system and eventually consult on how to improve the control scheme for Shred. Dr. Kim likened the controls in Ride to, quote, playing Guitar Hero with a controller that has buttons that only work 50% of the time. He came up with a way for the game to track board rotations better, but because Shred was being developed with Ride's controls as a base, several people thought the controls for the game were good enough, and his ideas took a lot of convincing to get implemented. Actually, Robomoto did lay off a couple dozen people 2 weeks before Shred's 2010 release. Said employees were allegedly working on a third Tony Hawk board peripheral game.
When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn?
For Shred, the developers decided to go in a slightly different direction, most notably putting in a snowboarding mode to add some variety, and at least initially not asking much of the player, seeing as how merely calibrating the board gets you an achievement. Before that, though, Tony starts the game by referring to us as the Master.
You must be stoked after tearing through the competition to be named the Master. Can you believe you made it this far? Come on in.
I haven't done anything yet. Unless you count beating Tony Hawk Ride on a non-casual difficulty.
In addition to bringing back some of the same skateboarding personalities from the first game, they also brought back the incredibly forced humor.
And you're probably wondering why we asked you here today.
To build a spaceship and live on the moon?
Gee, Pepe, I don't think they get it.
We wanted you to be the first to try out Tony Hawk Shred because you are the best player out there. So, here's my lucky board. Give it a try. Hop on. Get to it.
Before I delve too deep into Shred, let's go over some of the ways it's an improvement over Tony Hawk Ride. It's immediately apparent that they overhauled the user interface, making it far more versatile and allowing the player to pick a sport, stage, mode of play, and control setting all from the same screen. And in the middle of a challenge or score spot, you can pause and restart instead of forcing yourself to crash to start over. You go for stars, not points in this game, and when you unlock something, it specifically tells you right away what you've unlocked. The game is far more colorful, and the levels feel much larger than Ride's, with lots of different lines and spots to link together, and more arcadey stunts to pull like in past Tony Hawk games, on top of the score multipliers, speed boosts, and jump boosts. The movie icons are there for this very purpose, as collecting them alters parts of the level or opens up new paths to create different lines. The tutorials are more organized and do a better job instructing the player on how to do various tricks, as do help videos that pop up if you fail a certain trick in-game a few times, which thankfully can be turned off. In addition, all tutorials can be exited at any time. They also added a Trictionary, which lists all the tricks you can do and explains how to perform them. A new difficulty called Casual Plus was added, which lets the skater move within a certain area while still following a set path. Challenge mode was changed radically so that you have 18 different ones per level, ranging from easy to insane in difficulty. And unlike in Ride, you can get partial credit for doing some moves but not others, though you do get bonus points for hitting every trick in one go. Score Spot was added, which is a mode where you go through 5 spots trying to score as many points as possible, all of which add up to a cumulative total to earn more stars. And like Challenge mode, this has bonus objectives to add to your score as well. To Young's credit, the camera system does work better, as the issue with not being able to see where you're going while doing signature moves doesn't pop up nearly as much, and the camera doesn't embed itself inside walls and objects as much, though it still does have a few hiccups here and there.
What the fuck was that? What?
Above all else though, the board does feel more responsive in Shred than in Ride. Shred seems to respond to board inputs a bit faster, and ollies don't register as manuals very often. And while it still mixes up tilt and flick tricks, it doesn't happen nearly as often as in Ride. It also helps that the game largely doesn't ask you to do tilt or flick tricks specifically. The soundtrack is another improvement overall. It's slightly longer and seems to have a bit more variety to it. Contributing artists include Rise Against, Iggy Pop, Guttermouth, Burning Brides, AC Alone, the Brian Setzer Orchestra, Bad Religion, and they even put the original 99 Red Balloons in because... Shred also seems to do a better job than Ride of not having the same songs repeat several times, and there weren't any specific entries that pissed me off. Though the cover of Over the Rainbow by Me First and the Gimme Gimmes is a bit weird to hear the first couple of times.
So there you have it. Shred is an improvement over Ride. But the question remains, is it a good game that's worth playing and paying for?
Not everything is necessarily a step up from Ride. The training videos are quite extensive, to the point that I gave up making it all the way through them after almost 25 minutes of training exercises. It also has the same problem as Ride, where it brings up a training section later on for things you should have been taught much earlier, like when this prompt for advanced training appeared. You know what advanced training teaches? Tilt and flip tricks, ollie and nollie setup, and grabs. In other words, shit the game already told me about. Instead of letting the player decide what difficulty to play on, Confident and Hardcore are locked until you earn enough stars to unlock them. Look, I know most people just played casual anyway, but this seems to discourage people from trying to challenge themselves, especially when it doesn't matter what difficulty you complete any events on. In lieu of creating a character, Shred rolls out a small army of characters to choose from. Most are made specifically for the game with no defining characteristics besides a name and yelling random things in the middle of a combo.
Here I come! You know you like it? Who is that? Come on now!
I think it's pretty telling that I played more than half the game with this one character, and I still can't remember what his name is. However, you can unlock pro skaters and some hidden skaters later on, as well as extra costumes for certain people. Some of these hidden characters are unlocked by earning stars, but others are found while skating or snowboarding through certain levels. Aside from the alien, what characters I did find this way were found purely by accident. While I like most of the changes to challenge mode, there's one recurring challenge that's ridiculous to try and pull off. Starting a combo near the beginning of the stage and finishing it at the end of the stage. Given the stability, or lack thereof, in certain parts of the game, this is a ball breaker of an objective to have pop up several times. Also, the last insane ranked challenge on every stage is impressing a certain amount of videographers. The videographers are easily impressed, so the only major hurdles are not bailing and not taking a line with too few videographer spots. This challenge doesn't give you points, but instead a costume unlock for your character. Or some other character. They should have just removed one of the 17 other challenges and had this count for points. It would still be tedious to get through, but it would end faster and no one would miss that one other challenge. While board inputs are generally more responsive, manuals don't register as readily as before, which threw me off in a couple of challenges. We've also gone from game that can't tell the difference between doing a manual and doing nothing, to game that can't tell the difference between doing a handstand and doing nothing. Instead of being led along and learning things from skateboarding pros like in Ride, Shred is basically a skateboarding video game about playing a skateboarding video game. Just let that sink in for a moment. The pros only show up after you've earned a star or set a high score. Most of the time it's Tony Hawk taking advantage of the game's special effects budget, but other guys and gals get in on the action too. Some of them even sound like they actually want to be there.
Man, if stars was nickels, he'd be looking at a lot of nickels.
Yes! I'd say flawless, but I wasn't watching.
Seriously, that was awesome. Really awesome.
And then there's Jeff Rowley.
Man, you were gnarly out there. Absolute respect. Man, you hammered that. Pat yourself. Give yourself a nice pat in the back. Okay, it doesn't get much cooler than that. So sick, man.
I think he's used to letting his skateboarding do the talking for him.
Some new additions don't necessarily function as they should, such as the quick play option. This is supposed to put you directly into single player at a stage and play mode where you can earn stars. However, if there's a challenge or trick session or whatever where you didn't earn all 4 stars, it'll direct you there instead of the next blank event. This is also a good time to mention that the load times going between modes of play on the same stage are generally around 20 seconds, but when you're trying to move to a new stage, it can take up to a minute for it to load. There were some point rush runs I did which were almost faster than the time it took to load the level.
Think of it as the tortoise and the hare. Except instead of a hare, you have another tortoise. On a skateboard. Crashing into everything.
Some recurring problems with Ride were not improved upon in the sequel. For one thing, this still happens.
What? Hold on! What? I'm still going! Hold on. What the fuck? God damn it! No game, same shit!
There are also issues with clipping outside the boundaries alongside the stage, and in many cases, clipping through the sides of ramps. This happens a lot in the snowboarding levels in particular. Sound is also kind of buggy, as there were instances of sounds not playing when they should, and sounds playing when they shouldn't. If you want someone to play the game with you, they'd better live near you, because while party mode is still around, the online servers don't seem to work anymore. Wait, the online for Ride still works, but not Shred? There are still problems with slowdown in certain levels, namely a few spots in Melbourne. Civilians are still just there, though there are a lot more of them, which might explain why some of the frame rate drops happen. They still spawn directly in your path, sometimes facing away from you. You can still phase through them if they don't get out of the way, and they still end up doing random crap like this. They also like to pop in from a short distance away. Then again, the level itself does that too, so maybe it's some kind of local custom I'm just not familiar with. Rail and ledge detection for grinding is shockingly bad in Shred. I don't think I made it through a single level without having an instance of my character riding a ledge instead of grinding it, or somehow not grinding a rail when it's the only thing between his board and the ground. But there's one particular problem I found with Shred which, well, actually it's a problem with the board itself. In Shred there are several challenges that involve rotating the board. It was because of these particular challenges that I found something bizarre starting to happen. The board would disconnect in the middle of a run. It wouldn't shut off, it simply disconnected. Taking the batteries out and putting them back in was all I had to do to get it working again. But when this happens 2 to 3 times in what's supposed to be maybe a 20-second run, and it sometimes affects board calibration as well, I get the urge to ship this board back to the developers with the words "Fix it" written all over it.
Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it!
Fix it, fix it, fix it!
I was afraid the board was defective, but when I played other modes and challenges, it worked fine. And when I did fix the board, I would get a static shock whenever I touched the sensors. So here's my theory. The carpet I had the board on would build up a static electric charge as I did rotations with the board. Eventually, that charge builds to a point that it interferes with the board's signal to the USB dongle and the connection gets lost. I'm no electrical engineer, but if any part of this is even close to the truth, this is a huge oversight by the designers.
And what's my alternative? Get another rug to put the board on? Construct whatever Aperture Science Lab these demo videos were shot in? Move my console and my TV to a different room in the house that doesn't have carpeted floors? You think having this chunk of plastic with your full body weight on it, sliding and grinding around on bare floors is a good idea? That's how you end up with shit like your parents barging into your room one day and saying, "I demand you explain right now why it looks like someone was doing donuts on the hardwood floor in the living room." And at that point, you turn into the oblivious kid from the mid-80s cartoon series who says stuff like "gee whiz" unironically, talking about whatever lesson you learned while you're looking in the camera and the screen fades to black and the credits roll. And you're doing this as you do it, because you always do this when you're talking about whatever lesson you learned. You become Dennis the Goddamn Menace!
And as if those problems with the board weren't enough, the bugs and weird physics just wouldn't stop happening. It wasn't long before I got frustrated and decided to skip ahead to the final stage of the game, which I unlocked after playing only about 2.5 levels. The unlockables were so poorly balanced, I skipped over 4 stages.
And nothing of value was lost.
Here we go. We brought you out to be the first person to play Tony Hawk Shred, but this is going to be your biggest challenge yet. Are you ready? We put both sections of the amusement park together to create the most ridiculous run ever. And to be honest, no one here has been able to finish it, and I'm a little embarrassed to say that I can't even beat my own game.
No one is surprised you couldn't beat this, Tony. Hell, most people who played this game probably gave up and dug their old Tony Hawk games out of the attic 3 stages ago.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. The final stage is actually the 2 previous Huck Jam stages Frankenstein together into one. So technically there are 7 levels, not 8. The first part of this level is a nightmare to get through, because it's all grind transfers between a set of rails. Doing all these transfers eventually causes the game to think you're turning the board to the side, even if you're facing forward. At a couple of points, the game thought I was completely sideways. There's another problem with this section though. It's something I haven't even mentioned to this point, but on Casual and Casual Plus, there's a kind of rubber band effect when your character goes too far to one side and the game tries to lead you back to the path. This causes all sorts of problems with... You know what? Just watch.
What? What?
The second part of the Huck Jam stage is skating through an amusement park and/or haunted house and/or space ride. This part is fine, except for when the floor collapses and you have to ollie up a series of ledges, the last of which is only slightly lower than the highest point of your ollie. If your timing's even a little off, you have to redo this whole section again. This is especially annoying on a mode exclusive to the Huck Jam stages, Survival Mode, where you get 7 lives to complete the entire stage. But rest assured, what you'll find at the end of Survival Mode is well worth the work you put into completing it.
You know you like it.
All right, now you're raising the bar.
Wait, no, Tony, come back! I can feel my mind going, Tony.
That's it. Tony Hawk pops up, says good job, leaves, and the credits roll. Could you imagine other games trying to pass this shit off as an ending?
Otacon, are you okay? I guess so.
Screw it! I'm done with this game, I'm done with this chunk of plastic, and I am done with this video! I forgot the snowboarding.
Snowboarding functions a bit differently than skateboarding in a few ways. For one, you don't do tricks the same way. Snowboarding uses more rotations and grabs. Since your feet are attached to the board, you can't do tilt and flick tricks. I said your feet are attached. Whatever. There are now things like barrel rolls, front flips, and back flips, done by tilting the board from side to side, or basically ollieing or nollieing twice. Steering's also a bit stiffer to simulate carving through the snow. Point and trick score bonuses appear as large rings, and levels are designed with tons of ramps and steep drops. In this mode, you're guided by accomplished Australian snowboarder Tora Bright, whom probably used up whatever was left of the special effects budget.
Way to go! That's gold medal material right there. You slayed that pipe like I've never seen before. Congratulations. Dude, did you leave this Earth's orbit? That was some killer air. Perfect score. You went nuclear out there. Excellent job. What was that one? Nuclear. That was my American accent.
The snowboarding mode is okay, I guess, but it feels really tacked on, like there should be more to it. There are only 4 stages in this mode, and 2 of them are single event 4-star affairs. I got through every stage using hardcore controls in under half an hour. There were rumors that there would also be a surfing mode in Shred, but it was cut because they wouldn't be able to finish it in time. So it might not be too far-fetched to wonder if snowboarding was gimped to hit the game's release date. There's also something called Pro Trials mode, which is getting high scores on courses where you only use grinds, only use manuals, or only do aerial tricks. These are each repeated 3 times, and, like snowboarding mode, are both over quickly and have no actual ending.
Although I can show you what the snowboarding ending would have looked like.
That was dank.
Although I did find a way to do the big air challenges without causing the board to disconnect. If you absolutely must choose between Ride and Shred, go for Shred. It's unfortunate to say that too, because saying Shred sold terribly on its US release would be a massive understatement. Only about 3,000 copies were sold in its first week, in part due to Ride's reputation and Activision not promoting the release. I feel kinda bad for Shred because it's a better overall game than Ride, and if you want to get something just to screw around with at parties, I guess this would be okay. But based purely on its own merits, I had far more frustration than fun with this game, so I can't say Shred was worth the $3 I paid for it.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the Tony Hawk franchise got put on hold for a little bit. Although it's still far from dead. I mean, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD came out a couple years ago, there was a mobile game, and Tony Hawk confirmed on his Twitter that there's going to be a new console game in 2015. But I swear, if it's another one of these plastic board peripheral games, I am going to ride out to your house and turn your proving ground into an American wasteland! Is that really what I'm supposed to say? That sounds like really lame name dropping. Let's see, okay. Try that again. 3, 2, 1. Alright! Now you're raising the bar!
When I see a sign that says do not board here, the first thing that I do is ride my board there. Because no man can tell me what to do, not even Papa when he hit me with his shoe. I can do gang signs with my hand really fast, and who said gangster rap wouldn't last? I cannot afford a lowrider Ford, but I have planned to build a lowrider board. Gangsters, 15 gangsters.
You ain't thinking of getting rid of the dank, are you, Mo?
Maybe I am.
Oh, but Mo, the dank! The dank!
That was dank.